The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady reserve. The gentlelady reserves. The gentlelady from Florida.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, the ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee.
Gentlelady is recognized for 3 minutes.
I rise today in opposition to the Military Construction Veterans Affairs Appropriations Bill, which falls short of our commitments and backtracks on our promises to our veterans, our service members, and their families. This bill cuts funding for critical military construction by over $1.5 billion compared to its current level. It is built on a house of cards that will crumble as this body and the American people come to realize the full scope of cuts the majority is pursuing. This is not the only bill that supports programs and services that our veterans rely on. Republicans cannot credibly claim to fully fund veterans programs. The American people can clearly see how veterans are being treated when they look at the rest of the majority's domestic funding bills. Make no mistakes, if it were not for the Democrats, this bill would have decreased funding for veterans' medical care by $2 billion. In addition to which, the funding for the PACT Act would not have been there. In 2024, they were going to underfund it, and for 2025, they completely eliminated it. We should not be in this position, and the global economy should never have been used as a bargaining chip to extract cuts to domestic spending. But to prevent a catastrophic default, the President reached a deal with the Republican Speaker to lift the debt ceiling and to set spending levels. We have a path to fund the United States government on time, a path that this Congress agreed to on a bipartisan basis, and we ought to take that path. Instead, the bill offers cuts to vital programs our veterans, service members, and their families depend on. It cuts $200 million in dedicated funding for PFAS remediation and cleanup. These chemicals do not easily break down in the environment. They're a source of groundwater contamination on military bases, which can lead to serious health problems. And failure to quickly clean up contaminated areas puts the surrounding communities, including military families and civilians, at risk. This bill ignores the national security risk that will directly affect all of our bases at home and abroad: climate change. Additional dedicated funding for resilience projects is leaving America's service members and veterans completely exposed in the line of fire. Instead of responsibly funding our veterans in a bill palatable to both sides of the aisle, this bill is loaded up with hateful riders that have no business in appropriations language. Prohibitions on equity and inclusion programs and flags demonstrate grossly misplaced priorities, fighting culture wars, leaving our veterans, hardworking families, and the economy out to dry. The bill places the federal government in the room with women and their doctors. By making it harder for veterans to access health care, we take a step closer towards a national abortion ban. Our veterans did not serve this country and defend our freedom, and they volunteered to do it, to have their freedom and their autonomy stripped by this Congress. I urge my colleagues oppose this bill, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields.